Hi there, I'm Crimson Minxxx, and welcome to my video about why we need to acknowledge the real history of contemporary pole dance. When researching the history of pole dance, we find this quote-unquote fact all the time. Back in the 12th century, men started practicing Chinese pole. 800 years ago, Malakahab emerged as a pole sport for Indian men. And now, ta-da! We have pole dance. That being said, this is not a video about the history of pole dance. I've already done one of those and will leave a link to it in the notes below. But in case you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, our pole community was created and pioneered by female strippers. Here's a little clip of a problematic history of pole dance timeline video that spread like wildfire around Facebook last year. Now, am I saying that strippers are the first people to dance on a pole? No, of course not. But neither were Chinese polers. Let's be real, I'm fairly certain that someone managed to find a pole to dance on prior to the 12th century. That being said, that's not what's in question here. When we reference the history of pole dance, we are acknowledging the people who legitimately found it and built our community. And those people were not men in Chinese pole or Malakaham. I think my homegirl Anne-Marie Davies, founder of United Pole Artists, said it best in her interview on my Pole Parlour podcast last year.
None of those guys made events for us. None of those guys opened studios for us. None of those guys taught us tricks. No. The people who taught you tricks, opened studios, and started events were all strippers and ex-strippers. All of them in the very beginning. All of them. So, sorry, I got really hot for a second.
So, why is it a big deal when you deny the true history of pole dance and credit men outside of our industry? Who, brief aside, most likely know and care very little about our industry, just as we know and care very little about theirs. Well, the problem is that in doing so, you are participating in the whitewashing of our history, where you delegitimize the accomplishments of these pioneering women in order to fit a more socially acceptable mold, i.e., asexual and patriarchally approved. Basically, dishonestly trying to legitimize pole by denying its true roots in the strip clubs. Another homegirl of mine, Tony Misty Mansell, wrote a great article on this topic, which I'll link to in the notes below. But here's a fantastic excerpt about this practice of new wave polers participating in historic whitewashing as a means to validate their own participation in pole dance. It comes down to an ingrained sociological belief system that women's sexuality is a thing to be ashamed of. So because the development of pole from sex workers is considered shameful, but people want to do it, they need to find a means of justification to cleanse themselves morally and absolve themselves from any association with dirty women, lest they be painted with the same brush. I'm going to argue if you aren't able to support a woman unless she's deemed prudent, then perhaps pole dance isn't for you. That being said, what I'd rather see happen is people open their minds and be able to support and respect women of all backgrounds. Fact, we are one of the few female-dominated sports in the world, and our industry was created by some badass women. They worked against countless odds and broke down many barriers in order to create the industry as we know it today, where we now have the freedom to practice pole in its array of styles, be that sexy, athletic, artistic, etc. So, stop trying to delegitimize that, and instead, let's celebrate this impressive feat of social progress. If you are interested in reading up more on this, I'll place some links to additional articles in the notes below. And I hope this video helped you better understand and respect this topic, so we can stop perpetuating the bullshit story that men on rubber and wooden poles birthed our industry. Because the truth is, contemporary pole dance, now taught, practiced, and performed by an endlessly diverse array of women and men from around the globe, was still, in its genesis, founded by female strippers. And the only thing shameful about that is when you try to deny it. Do you have more to contribute on this topic? Feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts and experiences. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye!